Yom Hashoah, the 27th of the month of Nisan, is the day in which the Jewish community commemorates the murder of the 6 million men, women and children, Jews murdered in the Holocaust. It is a day which is too painful to contemplate, but a day that we need to commemorate. As a rabbi and as a community leader, I have had the opportunities to go on what is called the March of the Living. This event is a yearly occurrence in which we walked with Holocaust survivors, walked with them as they stepped through their journeys, reliving their experiences with us. And while we were walking with them, the experience that I learned from them was the stories that they shared were stories of our history. And it wasn't until many years later, 7 years later, that I was once again doing a march in Auschwitz. But this time, there were no survivors. I was the survivor. I was telling the story with my students. And I told them the story about the Holocaust survivor, what he experienced when he got off the train, when he stood here and the selection was going left and to right. He told me the story about where he cried. And when we asked him, what do you feel when you're looking at Auschwitz? He says, this is not Auschwitz. I said, but we're sitting in Auschwitz. How can you not say that? And his response was, because in Auschwitz there was no grass. And I'm sharing the story with my students. And they say to me, and they look at me, and I come to this realization that now I am the witness to the witness. And that is a frightening responsibility. The Shoah is so enormous, so huge. And we have the responsibility of never forget. Because if we don't remember the events, and we forget them, and we trivialize them, who knows what could be. Yom Hashoah is the day at which we pause as a community and we remember the events of the Shoah. Because we have to. And without that memory, we need to be aware of our responsibilities. Because without understanding what the Holocaust was about, we will read in the newspaper that people are perpetrating, behaving like Nazis. They are going to go, this place is worse than Auschwitz. No, Auschwitz is not a buzzword. The ghetto is not a buzzword. The murder and the behaviors that took place during the Holocaust is unparalleled. And unless we know about it and we study it and we read about it, we will trivialize it. I remember talking to a Holocaust survivor, Olga, and she said to me, never, ever, ever should we fictionize the Holocaust. And I asked about the story, about the boy in the striped pajamas. I said, wasn't that a powerful story? She said, it was a terrible story. Because once you take the Holocaust and you fictionalize it, people will trivialize. And thus, Yom Hashoah is the day in which we pause, we read, we watch, we listen, and we understand what the term Auschwitz really means, what the term Nazi really means, and what the term Holocaust really means. Because without understanding them, we trivialize, and when we trivialize, we endanger our memories and we endanger our futures. Yom Hashoah is a vitally important day in the calendar, and we need to respect it and honor it in a way that is most befitting. Light a candle, read a book, watch an interview with a survivor, because it is through that we can once again calibrate and resensitize ourselves to these messages of what the terms really mean.